School principals of Reddit, what's the craziest thing a kid has ended up in your office for? So one day a kid skipped class and went off campus for a cigarette. He didn't sign out. He was immediately expelled and banned from campus. He was halfway through his senior year, so they let him graduate with a program. Anyway, so a few months later, a kid went into a bathroom and smoked a bowl. The entire building reeked because of the venting system. Want to know his punishment? Nothing. Literally, he didn't lose any privileges. His parents came in and talked to the headmaster with the kid, and that's all that happened. My English teacher even made a joke about it, saying, "So can I just do lines during class?" Before building a room for study hall, they had study hall in the MPR, multi-purpose room, and I had study hall just before a lunch. My friends and I were clowning around, and I asked a passing classmate if she happened to have a tampon, and she did and gave it to me. When the bell rang, and the first lunch group made its way to the lines, we dunked it in fruit punch, then launched it by the stringing to a mass of people. I ended up smacking someone with it, and for like 30 seconds there was a panic of "OMG, is that real?" The dean of students saw me and made me sit in the ice room, and I had to eat my lunch there, and then I got a Wednesday school, which was just extra long detention. I'm the student in this case. I need to preface this by saying that I've always been a, well, larger chested girl. I had a math teacher my freshman year of high school who was basically flat chested, who would tell me I was inappropriately dressed every single day when I would be wearing something like a tank top or a v-neck t-shirt. There was one day where I was even wearing the same shirt as another girl, and only I got reprimanded. One day she tells me to pull my shirt up, and I tell her no, so she sent me to the office. When I get there, the teacher asked me if I changed my shirt on the way over there. I said no, and he called the teacher confirming that it was the same shirt. After hanging up with her, he just shook his head and told me to go back to class. TL. Doctor, my teacher was jealous of my tits. Principal here. Larry was brought to my office by an irate teacher because he not only wouldn't stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance, he was making fart noises during the pledge. This was a 12-year-old 7th grader. As we talked, I told him he didn't have to stand up, but he did need to be quiet. He informed me that he did not believe in the indoctrination and would resist. He and his family were a pain, so even though I didn't want to, I told him I'd need to call his mom. He then informed me that it wasn't his mother I'd be calling, because he was the bastard child of Eva Braun and Adolf Hitler. I called mom anyway, and he began screaming, "That's not my mom." She demanded to talk to him, so I handed him the phone. He informed his mother he was not a child, he was the bastard child of Eva Braun and Adolf Hitler. I could hear her begin to scream at him over the phone as he screamed at her, "You're not my mom." He finally gave me the phone back, and after the mom yelled at me for a while, she agreed to come and get him. She was not happy when she picked him up, and was even less so as she pulled him out of the building as he screamed, "Sieg Heil! Sieg Heil!" He was later sent to juvenile detention, where I read in the paper he attempted to incite other residents to riot over food choices. You can't make this up. My father is a principal/superintendent for a small school district in Northern California, less than 100 students, K-12. This is his first year at this school, and his first week on the job last fall he had to expel a 7th grade girl for giving out joints at lunch. The way he told it to me is that she was not even hiding what she was doing, and was surprised that it was a big deal. Now is a good time to mention that pot, both legal and illegal, is the primary economy for this community. He has over 40 years in the education system, and to him this was his biggest. The times there are changing moments. I had a kid in one of my classes senior year that was pretty oblivious to everything around him. Last few weeks of school he sits down in class like any other day, except today he's carrying an empty coffee mug. He puts the mug down on his desk and pulls out a can of beer, cracks the beer, and pours it into the mug while the teacher stares on in disbelief. The teacher says, "You've got to be shitting me, you know you can't do that, right?" Student responds, "Oh, I thought you'd be cool with it. You should go to the principal's office now for a little conversation." The kid is now a legend, albeit an unemployed legend. TL. Doctor turns out drinking beer from a mug. isn't okay in high school. Sigh. Our principal was a hard-ass. Before I start, I should mention this was a small school, less than 100 kids. Sophomore year, a girl got a 3-day suspension for something she posted on MySpace. It wasn't offensive or vulgar, he just didn't like it. We later found out he was keeping tabs on several people's MySpace pages. Creepy stalker is creepy. She was back a day early because the rest of the staff sat him down to explain that it wasn't appropriate for him to stalk us. Pretty sure the only reason he didn't get fired is because he hadn't been there more than a couple months. Senior year, I got in a car accident while I was out for lunch. Wasn't my fault, other guy ran a light. I had to stick around for a while the cops sorted everything out and my car got towed. I show up back at school, having already called to explain the situation, and jackass principal is waiting there for me and basically starts yelling in the middle of the hall for me to come into his office. He then spent 20 minutes berating me for dangerous behavior and making the school look bad, apparently because I was wearing a jacket with the school's name on it. Lots of people got in trouble for coming back from lunch late on more than one occasion, so he decided that applied as well. So I got to stay after to help him clean, which thankfully my dad got me out of when he came to pick me up. He taught a geography class junior year, which unfortunately I was a part of. There were like 10 people in the class, and he spent half of every class complaining that we weren't trying hard enough. Pretty sure no one scored less than a 95 on anything from that class. Same geography class. We had the gay kid and the black kid sitting at a table working on something. Suddenly, black kid screams and runs out of the room. Turns out, gay kid had tried to reach down his pants. Only one person ended up in the principal's office for that one, and it's not who you'd expect. I was the kid. I was taken to the vice principal's office for eating too much and subsequently banned from the school library. Explanatory detail: I hadn't done much homework that year, but I had read most of the fiction section of the library. The idea was to stop me reading for 2 hours after school every day and then going home. The main consequence of being banned from the library was that I hung out in the computer lab instead. Go ahead and guess how that turned out. Teacher had a long scarf type thing on to go with her outfit. My friend was talking to his girl about a math problem. She walks over and lays a referral on his desk and says go to the office. He looks at her and says I was discussing a fucking math problem with her because you fucking suck at teaching. He gets up, walks to the trash can next to the door, drops his referral in the trash, and field goal kicks that bitch clear down the hall. He turns and says oh by the way, that scarf looks like a fucking shower curtain. He got a nice little vacation. All through school there has been this one guy, who we all call Smeagol. I liked my spelling better, like Gollum. And this kid has been obsessed with me, constantly trying to get my attention and everything. So in 10th grade we are on a band/choir trip in Chicago, 10 hours from home, and we are on the viewing platforms at the Sears Tower. I'm deathly afraid of heights. It took my friends a good half hour to get me to go on it. I slowly edge on, and what does this douche do? Pushes me down onto the clear floored platform. Well, it's more like a box, so I fall onto the floor of it and look straight down to the ground, a 100 or so stories below. I immediately get up and punch him square in the nose. I had never hit anyone before in my life. He starts bawling. My teacher Skypes the principal and he says, "Did you break his nose?" "No, I don't think so." "Well, he had it coming. As long as he won't be permanently damaged, I'll let it go." I got called into the principal's office one day for recording a fight between two students. These kids were trying to start a fight club, and honestly they handled it very well. So I recorded the arranged fight, and as soon as it ended, and I hit the button on my phone to stop recording, a teacher walked by and grabbed my phone. Now this was the iPhone 3G, and it had just come out, and they hadn't been able to record video natively, but I was jailbroken, and was using Psycorder at the time. So the VP calls me into her office a few hours later, and proceeded to only ask me about my phone. She had been searching for hours for Psycorder on the App Store, and was asking how I changed the look and preferences of my phone, and how I locked certain apps, to which I asked, why she was trying to get into my settings and messages. It ended up with us hanging out for the final period of the day, and when the final bell rang she just said, "Oh, don't record any more fights, okay?" And she called me out of class a week later to walk her through the jailbreak process. I'm not a principal, but I was once the student. In this one particular class we always did bell ringers, a question on the board we answered at the start of class, and we would turn them in at the end of the week for extra credit. I always messed with the kid who sat next to me, and we would always try to draw penises on each other's paper. Eventually a total war broke, and I went all in. Big ones, small ones, veiny ones, hairy ones, two-headed penises, long ones, chodes, and penises from different racial backgrounds. You name it, and it was on this kid's paper. Instead of erasing it though, he turned it in, and shortly after I was in the principal's office. Once I sat down, the principal pulls this bell ringer paper out and asks me if I was the one responsible for the masterpiece. He then compliments me on my Siamese penis and starts laughing. He tells me that it reminded him of his high school days. All he did was warn me not to overdo it again, to where I ended up in the office again. Maybe not the craziest, but the funniest I was the tar for my history teacher junior year in HS. My history teacher sent me to deliver a note to the choir teacher. As I arrived in the choir class I don't see the teacher anywhere, however all of his students are in their seats. It was stadium type seats, and I was on the stage looking for the teacher. One of my good friends was in the class and she jokingly says, "EWW, it's Harvey Walter Orient," to which I reply, "Suck my cock," as I thrust my hips forward and crossed my hands in front of my junk. I was expecting a good laugh, but instead was met with pure silence and oh shit faces. The next sound I hear is the choir teacher, who just entered the class behind me, asking, "What did you just say?" He sent me right to the principal's office. I tried to explain it away as a rooster joke between friends, but that didn't fly at all. He made me return to the class and apologize, and then gave detention. Another student here. In like 10th grade, I was walking down the hall in my school, coming back from lunch, and I was talking to a girl I was interested in. Somehow, our conversation shifted to an apple I had brought from the cafeteria. Being a clown, I ended up lobbing it into a crowd of people. I ended up hitting a senior with an anger issue. What preceded was a hulking 18-year-old who didn't seem to like getting pegged by apples charging at me, looking to beat the shit out of me. A teacher intervened, and he and I were both escorted to the principal's office, and had to do 40 hours of community service together.